friends with the guy for like 10 years. He just didn't do that beforehand. Love you too, Chris. It was true. I got hit by a car. And we were working class, so the first thing in my head was, we're going to sue, right? I want a better bike. And my father reiterated that we don't chase blood money. And years later, even when his wife died from a solid medical malpractice case, he said it again, we don't chase blood money. And that stuck with me, I'm 45 now, most of my life. And come January of 2020, COVID began to appear on our shores. But at the same time, I had just released my second book, a book about the post office called Lost in the Mail. Please buy it so I can quit my fucking job. I hate working for rich people. They suck. And so my book, my first book did very well, and I didn't have to do as much like legwork and press. And I'm not bragging. I'm just trying to set this up. I saved my humble bragging for where it belongs, my high school reunion. Yeah, nobody goes to a high school reunion to see anybody anymore. We have Facebook. You go to bury your enemies. Let's just be honest, okay? And I buried every single one of those motherfuckers. At any rate, let me get back to the story. So, my book was released in December of 2019, and it was a little bit slower going, so I had to put a little bit more legwork in, and it just started to catch traction in like January and February. I was having book signings all across the country. Things were looking great. My dream of becoming a full-time author, I felt like I was on the cusp of it. And then March of 2020 happened, and Donald Trump, now look, my book about the Postal Service was about the working class Americans and about the Postal Service in general, which touches everybody's life, and how the Postal Service employs a diverse and very multicultural section of the American public. And I wanted to give a couple, illuminate those sides that I didn't feel was really being represented in the media. And I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but this selfish asshole was like, when he was like not gonna close things, I was like, do it, Donnie, fucking do it, baby. I'm not gonna lie. But I knew once we shut down for 2 weeks that we were not gonna reopen for a while. And as the weeks went on, my inbox kept getting filled with cancellations for book signings. Like everything that I had worked hard for and I'd put all this effort into, I was waking up every morning to, I'm sorry, Mr. Cupsey, but we can no longer host your event because of COVID-19. So as months went on and on and on, everything just got canceled. And with it, and sadly enough, at the time, I needed the money. I was working freelance. I was writing. If anyone in here works freelance or writes, anybody know? Anybody? Bueller? Yeah, you know how bad it sucks. Like, I was poor. Like, me and ramen are best friends. I've eaten more ramen than any human should. I should probably actually go to the doctor, get my blood pressure checked, but that's for another story. And so my book goes out, and I everything's shut down, and it's April of 2020, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I don't know how to sell this book. I was counting on appearances. I was counting on shows. I was counting on all these things to help kind of push this book that I put a lot of really hard work into and really loved. And I was thinking, well, I could just do what everyone else is doing, just online. I could just promote my book online. Like, that's what I could do. And then I kept thinking of what my dad told me, is that we don't chase blood money. And I was thinking to myself, like, how am I going to sit here and promote my book from, like, the safety and confines of my tiny basement abode while people are out there, like, suffering and dying, because as the death toll went up, my bank account and book sales just kept going down and down and down, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to ask people to buy my book when people were dying, especially compatriots that I used to work with at the Postal Service, where people, letter carriers that I were friends with were getting hospitalized due to COVID, and they were exposed, and I felt like a terrible person. I was like, there's no way that I can promote this book while this is going on, and I just let it die. I just said, okay, this is it. This is what God wanted. I'm not gonna lie, I had a 2-week bender. I did Jell-O shots every fucking morning and smoked weed. Like, I woke up, just lit a joint, did a Jell-O shot. I'm not gonna say it was rock bottom, but we were getting real close, people. not gonna lie. And then I just let it die. I didn't think of it. I didn't care anymore. I figured, you know what? This is just the way it is. Sometimes life doesn't work out the way you want it to, you know? Like now you gotta have to pivot and find something else. And luckily I was able to find some work and some freelance stuff. But something more interesting happened. I opened my DM on Facebook, why would anyone do that, right? Like it's usually a cesspool. I don't know if it is for you guys. It seems like all of you have an enjoyable Facebook experience. What's that like? You know, mine's usually filled with like angry people I went to high school with who were addicted to drugs looking for money. Must be nice you guys all grew up in a nice neighborhood, you know? What's up? Yeah, I could, but then like schadenfreude. I love seeing my enemies suffer, you know? Not gonna lie, you guys can all pretend that you go on there. This is what I go on there for, to see people I don't like do poorly. Anyway, but I digress. So I had dedicated this book, to a coworker named Joe McAwee. And he had died in 2010. We were very close. He was a writer. He was a storyteller himself. He had been published in every major newspaper in this country. And he was a bit of an inspiration for me as a human and as a friend. And I checked my DM for some weird reason, and it was his daughter. And his daughter said, I want to thank you. I just read your book, and I thought it was great. And I want to thank you for dedicating it to my dad. And I was like, wow, that's great. And then I went through, and I noticed that I had other DMs from people I had never even been connected to, other mailmen from across the country who had read the book, and that they were passing it around post offices. And finally, an old coworker of mine called me. I had been removed I left the Postal Service to take a job as a writer, as you guys know, and you now know how that was working out. And this coworker of mine, his name's Jim, and he goes, Nick, I read your book, and for the first time, I felt proud to be a mailman. And then I realized that it wasn't about me, making a living. It wasn't about me, like, trying to live off my craft, that it was really about me connecting with people. And it wasn't about my ego. And that's what made that book perfect for me. So it is bittersweet that I'm not a loaded author doing drugs right now, but it connected to who it was supposed to connect to, and that to me means everything. Thank you very much. Yeah.